And we're back. In parts 1 through 4, we talked about Littlefinger's plan. Start conflict between houses in order to get Harrenhal. Beggar the realm and buy up debt in order to get allies. And kidnap a Queen of Love and Beauty. Now it seems clear that Littlefinger wants to marry Sansa, either to himself or to Harry the Heir. But Sansa is already married, to Tyrion. Now Tyrion explicitly states that the High Septon or a Council of Faith is needed to set aside unconsummated marriages. The High Sparrow, though, does not seem like the most cooperative fellow. So what's Littlefinger to do? Well, believe it or not, the answer rests with a dwarf girl named Penny. Tyrion has been a thorn in the side of Littlefinger, and it's no wonder that Littlefinger has tried to kill him 4 times. Now we've talked about the dagger in A Game of Thrones, and we've talked about Mandon Moore in A Clash of Kings. But Littlefinger tried to kill Tyrion a 3rd time in A Storm of Swords by pinning Joffrey's murder on him. Littlefinger brought Penny and her brother to King's Landing to joust at Joffrey's wedding, knowing it would anger Tyrion and implicate him in Joffrey's murder. That's 3 times Littlefinger has tried to kill Tyrion, but what's the 4th? Well, let's talk about Penny for a second. Penny is naive. Unbelievably naive. She acts incredibly shy around the topic of sex. Yet she's a mummer, and we know that mummer shows can be quite crude. In fact, when Tyrion and Penny perform in Yunkai, one of the masters requests that they have sex. And aboard the Celisori Kron, the other passengers sexualize her as well. It seems almost certain that Penny has been dealing with lewd comments and sexual harassment her whole life. And yet she blushes about the topic of sex. This is odd considering she once lived in Littlefinger's whorehouse. But besides the naivety, there's other things that are false about Penny as well. Namely, her attraction to Tyrion. Tyrion is not an attractive man. In fact, he's not even an attractive dwarf. In fact, he's an unattractive dwarf who lost his nose. It seems unlikely that Penny is attracted to Tyrion, and Tyrion sees this lack of attraction in her eyes. Yet we also know that Tyrion is a sucker for people that pretend to be attracted to him, like Shae. And Tyrion is a sucker for a good sob story, like Sansa or Tysha. Penny is both a sob story and pretends to like Tyrion. So could she be Littlefinger's agent? Well, let's keep in mind that Penny once worked for Littlefinger, and she did try to kill Tyrion when they first met. In A Dance with Dragons, Jorah and Tyrion go to the Widow of the Waterfront in order to try to get a ship to Meereen. The Widow refuses them, claiming she doesn't trust Jorah. But then Penny attacks them, and everything gets weird. The Widow tells her men to bring Penny upstairs to have her cleaned up. With little explanation, suddenly the Widow wants to help Tyrion and Jorah. Now I'm not sure what kind of proprietors take attempted murderers upstairs to have them cleaned up, but the Widow of the Waterfront is a widow to a Volantian elephant. She's a merchant and a businesswoman and a slaver, and should be an enemy to Daenerys. So it may be that Penny was an assassin sent to kill Tyrion, who is then given a new mission, seduce Tyrion and get to Daenerys. It would explain why a slaver would want to help Daenerys, and why Penny would want to go along. She needs to neutralize dragons, a threat to Littlefinger's plans. If Penny is Littlefinger's agent, her con is pretty brilliant. But there is a Littlefinger agent who isn't so brilliant, and that's Dantos. Although Littlefinger plays it down, Dantos had a pretty important job. He had to kidnap Sansa and give her poison that would be used on Joffrey. And yet Dantos is a drunken idiot. If he were caught or turned on Littlefinger, it would be all over for him. Why wouldn't Littlefinger use a semi-competent person? Why use Dantos? Well, let's switch gears and talk about the Defiance of Duskendale. For some reason, Aerys is kidnapped by the Lord of Duskendale and kept in a dungeon beneath the fort. After being rescued, Aerys has all the Lord Darklands and Lord Hollards killed. Aerys also has Lady Sarala killed, the Lady of Duskendale, but not before giving her a hysterectomy. Now, ancient justice often involves removing parts that cause crimes. So I'm guessing that Sarala was doing something to Aerys in that dungeon sexually. So Aerys may have been kidnapped and raped in a dungeon. And this again sounds exactly like the Bael the Bard story, where Bael kidnaps the Lady of Winterfell and rapes her in the crypts. Duskendale may have been about Sarala trying to birth a savior. And her hysterectomy may have been to ensure 100% that her child would not survive. So what does this have to do with Dantos? Well, an entire Brienne chapter is dedicated to her going to Duskendale and learning about Dantos' past. Dantos is the rightful lord of Duskendale, so it's interesting that he's being used to kidnap Sansa. Littlefinger is doing the same thing that Sarala did. He's convincing the Lord of Duskendale to betray his king and kidnap someone special. But why go through all this trouble? Why get Harrenhal? Why get Sansa? Why is Littlefinger fulfilling prophecy when he insists that life is not a song? Well, I think the answer lies with Robert's tapestries. Now, these tapestries first appear in a Game of Thrones, but then return in A Feast for Crows. Now, yes, they probably have pictures of Baratheons in them and can help prove Stannis' rightful claim to the throne. But there's something curious about them. They have scenes of hunt and battle. Now, I can understand the hunting. Robert loved hunting. But why would a king who is trying to unite a kingdom have scenes of battle? Now, these are old tapestries, so it's not battle against the Targaryens. But battle against Dornish or Riverlanders would be quite insulting. What battle would give Robert legitimacy without insulting the people he's trying to ally with? Well, I have one idea, and that's the story of Durin Godsgrief. Durin was the first Storm King, and he fell in love with the daughter of the gods and took her virginity. This brought on the wrath of the gods, but Durin fought them and won. Durin's battle against the gods gives legitimacy to Storm King rule while not insulting the other kingdoms. It's actually the perfect tapestry to hang. And considering that Littlefinger was in love with Cat but was of too low of birth to marry her, I can see him relating to this story. He even believes he took Cat's virginity. So what am I saying? Littlefinger wants to go to war with the gods? Well, he does seem to think the old gods exist. What do I mean? Well, Dantos only meets with Sansa in the Godswood. It seems that Littlefinger is purposely showing things to the old gods there. The Eyrie, though, has soil that doesn't allow werewoods to grow, so the old gods are blind here. And Harrenhal is on the shores of the God's Eye. Littlefinger is seemingly controlling the information that the gods see. He's trying to fool them, just like he's trying to fool everyone else. For all the old gods know, Dantos has kidnapped Sansa and is going to marry her. Considering that Dantos is the last king of Duskendale and has the blood of the first men, the old gods may be cool with that. And that's where I see the Littlefinger master plan going. Littlefinger fancies himself Bael the Bard and Durin Godsgrief. He's trying to trick the world, including the gods. He's manipulating prophecy in order to get his Queen of Love and Beauty and rule. He thinks something magical will happen at Harrenhal on the shores of the God's Eye, the place where the contract was signed between the Children of the Forest and the First Men. Right now, for all they know, the gods think that Dantos, the last king of Duskendale, is going to marry Sansa, the Queen of Beauty. Littlefinger has bait and switched the gods. Now, I don't necessarily think that he's going to be successful. The Ghost of High Heart did say that Sansa was going to slay a giant. And a Titan's head is Baelish's sigil before the Mockingbird. Which brings me to the end of my discussion of Littlefinger. Now, once again, I'm probably wrong about half of this, but I also feel like I've only told half of the story. There's still the mystery of who is Lothar Brune, and why are the Fossaways important, and what's the deal with Cracklaw Point? And also, why are Jaime, Brienne, and the Hound so mystically connected to this story? And do Littlefinger's gray-green eyes mean anything? Like, are they connected to the sea? And of course, there's Arya, a girl who's just as connected to the Braavosi and Harrenhal as Sansa. But those questions will have to wait for a future video. Next time, the Ironborn.